Welcome to RecLess, a podcast making people smarter and more knowledgeable about parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country, bringing their own unique and sometimes entertaining perspectives with a surprise guest each episode. This is RecLess.
Welcome to the 12th episode of RecLess, live here on location in Dallas, Texas.
Beautiful.
At the 2023 NRPA conference. Guys, how you doing today?
Good. It's good to be here.
This is great. First time being together in person doing this. Very different.
Yeah, super cool. I'm Tom Venniro, your host today.
There's no way we make it to 12 if we had done all of them first.
Oh, probably not. This is very hard. Just for all of our listeners out there, I really don't want to look at your faces on the screen, let alone in person.
For sure.
All right, so I'm Tom Venniro. I'm your host today. So I have secured today's mystery guest. Didn't let the cat out of the bag, I don't think.
Very proud of yourself.
Yes, yep. This is an accomplishment. Here with Shane Mize, Texas native.
That's right. That's right.
And Jay Tryon of North Carolina.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, exciting.
So I do, just because we are live on location, it's in person, I don't want to go crazy with our initial conversations, but I'm going to still ask you a question. Okay. So other than coming to this conference and getting to see me every day, a lot of the time of the day, right?
Almost all day.
Yep, most of the day.
Seems a lot.
Other than how amazing that is for both of you, that accomplishment for you, what have you experienced so far, or what are you really most looking forward to for the rest of it? I know we've done this, but we're here now, right? And we've already got to experience our own company. So what else? What else is there that you're just super excited to be here?
I've been on the program committee for 13 years. I think I actually only served like 11 and a half of those years, but from start to finish, 13 with a little break in between. So being this is my last year to be on the program committee, that was interesting to be at the program meeting for the last time and hear some of the cool things that they're doing for our membership in the future, which I think is going to be really great and going to continue to see the programs here elevated. But, I wouldn't say end of an era, but it's a long time to serve on a committee. I can vouch for it's an incredible committee to serve on if you can crack. It's a really tough committee to get onto. There's 26 to 28 people, depending on the size of the local host and a couple of those things. But that represents the membership as a nation, and it represents the 6,000 to 9,000 attendees that actually show up and attend the conference every year. And so it's a pretty big responsibility, but fun. And there's been a lot of perks to it, and a lot of really cool things I've learned over the years. And it's good to be moving on. It's good for someone else to take over, but it's bittersweet because that's a committee that I've been associated with for a long time.
And you worked with Jay on that committee for a while. Yeah. I heard that you went out with Grace. You had no comments. Is that correct? You just you kept your mouth, you kept quiet, and
I definitely talked, but I didn't cause a lot of trouble.
Okay.
I mean, he has talked on it for 13 years, so there's only so much more he could say.
Yeah, that's right. Sure.
But I would add actually very similar context. I just rolled off the Capra Commission. So I've been on it for 6 years. I'm a little younger than Shane, so can't say I've been on something for 13 years yet, but 6 years, but it's been great. There's been a lot of improvements we've seen. We accredited 15 new agencies yesterday through our hearings, and being able to be a part of 2 different terms with multiple different chairs and seeing a lot of people come and go and learning from each one, but then the improvements that the Capra Commission's making and seeing the impact we make through agencies that are getting accredited and growing professionally and sharing their stories of what they do has been great. So it was a bittersweet meeting to come off of that. There's a lot of work and energy that goes into Capra, but it's been exciting to be a part of that for the last 6 years.
I would ask what's next, because that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. And we'll save that for another day. For me, just keep it brief, because you covered some really great things that you're doing. Honestly, just being here with you guys, I know I joked about us hanging out, but that's always a big perk. And getting to just go through the hallways and talk to people that we haven't talked to in a while, right? And now adding that little caveat that we talk about this podcast.
I would definitely agree with that.
I've been
awesome. Shocked at how many people have wanted to talk about the podcast.
Yeah. And I think we can all agree that we really have kind of formed this love for this podcast. So it makes that conversation so much more enjoyable, because I'm talking about something that, we're passionate about what we do, but another one of those passion projects. So
absolutely.
All right. So let's get our guest in here. live guest. It's a little nerve wracking, right? Like, especially so for the audience out there, we had to coordinate this so that our two panelists who do not know who the guests were facing, yes, they're looking somewhere else. We actually have a videographer behind us. Nobody can see that as well. We are. This is our documentary started today. Shout out to Courtney Carroll from the New York State Rec and Park Society.
Being on HBO Max in a couple months.
Yes, yeah. So all right, let's get to it. Our guest today. Are you ready for some clues?
Michael and Lord.
No, too easy. I couldn't.
Just saw it downstairs.
We did. All right, so these first few guests might give it away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm a little nervous about that. They are here at conference.
Really? Pretty good.
Wow. You got it?
There's
8,000 people. 9,000. You both know the individual.
Okay.
You both have seen this individual over the last 2 days.
Okay.
So that narrows it down a little bit, right? To about, for you guys, like 2,000, right? Yeah.
Less for me, probably.
Yes.
Way less for Shane.
All right, so this is going to narrow it down for real. Former NRPA 30 under 30 recipient. Okay, so what is really great about this, what I'm very excited about, is it's a real true rising young professional. Okay, so
I
have an idea.
already?
Yes. Is she about 5'1"?
I was gonna say 5'2", maybe.
Well, I mean,
Is that what you're?
can we just, can you guys
We
give a couple
collectively are
minutes?
ready to
Because
guess.
they already know, but
We're
can you just
ready to
give me a
start.
couple
We're ready
just
to
to do justice to the guest?
Sure, is it Maria?
All right, so before we give an official announcement, prior to the current role that they hold, worked for 2 NRPA Gold Medal award-winning agencies, one the Woodland,
Oh, the
Texas,
Woodlands, yeah. 'cause
and the
intern,
other
yeah.
Mecklenburg.
That
right?
could have
So-
tripped me up because I wouldn't have done that.
So you all obviously know who it is at this point. Also a founding member of the Hispanic
Yep.
Professionals in Parks and Recreation, which is pretty impressive.
2-year presenter, right? At least 2 years.
Yes, presented several.
So great things, doing great things. Like I said, rising star.
Is it Maria?
It is Maria. So we'll get to that. Well, I have one more,
Come on down.
and that is that used to work with Jay and clearly is now somewhere else. So could not handle Jay. And that I'm afraid that's going to happen to us soon enough. He's going to drive us out. So we need to welcome the current Huntersville Park and Rec Special Events Coordinator, Maria Cepeda.
Look at that.
Maria, come on in.
Are you guys surprised?
We guessed it.
We guessed it.
2 in, 3 in.
It was at least 4.
But-
all right.
Still surprised at,
Excited.
yes, before we got into the hints, I was not thinking this.
Oh, good.
This was still a surprise.
Yeah.
Good.
Did you have any idea
That's
going into this?
No.
Okay, cool.
I talked
Cool.
to her today. I had no clue.
So Maria, really first, what we always like to ask is, how you doing?
I'm great. I thought I was gonna need a nap, but I'm doing great.
I saw her volunteering downstairs just earlier.
Oh,
Yeah, we named some of your accolades that we didn't even talk about before the episode. These guys named some more off, and now we know you're volunteering as well. You've been presenting, so we have a pretty good basis of some of the things you've been up to. And I'll just start with a question that came about in a conversation that you and I and Shane had probably a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
We were about to get ready for something that we were going to work together on, and it's still in the making, but it's not out there yet. So I won't really mention that.
It's to get rid of Jay.
oh yeah.
So we've got a lot of things going on, but one part of that conversation was amazing to me, and I really love origin stories. It's just always intrigued me of how people get into the field.
Yeah.
And so we already talked about how you worked for the Woodlands, you worked for Mecklenburg County. So you told us a really great story about your growth, your passion for this field. From my interpretation, you've made a huge impact based on your growth in, I guess, that origin. Basically, you told us a story about when you were with the Woodlands. You met one of our former guests, Chris Nunes. I'm not going to tell the story because I want you to tell the story, but it was super unique, and it sounds like that had a really big impact on you in a lot of what you're doing right now. So tell us that story. That was you were an intern at the time, right?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead. Tell us about that story.
So I had just graduated college at Wingate, and I needed my internship to kind of complete it and put like the ribbon on it, you can say. And I did my internship with the Woodlands, and I was working a specific event called Rock the Row. So it's basically a concert series, and it was pouring. So we didn't even have the event. We didn't even have the concert, but we were under this huge pavilion, and I look over and I see someone wearing a UNC lacrosse shirt, and I love lacrosse. I played lacrosse in college. So I was like, oh, like this is just a regular person. And I just kind of struck up the conversation of, oh, did you play there? Do you know anyone that plays there? And at the time he was talking about how his son either wanted to go there or was looking to play there.
By the way,
Yeah.
like
His son is a national star.
Yeah, it's very, very good. And mind you, he was wearing a UNC lacrosse shirt, cargo shorts, and flip-flops and a hat.
And probably a Red Sox hat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really old, battered Red Sox hat, probably 30 years old.
So I'm thinking this is just the dad that wanted to come to this event, thinking nothing of it. And part of my job is just talking to people. And anybody that knows me knows I can talk to a wall. So I'm like, okay, you just having a conversation. And he never mentioned anything about who he was. Right. It was just about lacrosse. That was it.
He let you brag about his department to him, basally.
Yeah.
He let you tell about the event, about the thing. And he never said, well, yeah, I know I worked.
Yeah. I gave him the whole spiel. I said, yeah, I went to Wingate. I'm doing this internship. I really like it. Everyone's really been great. Everyone's been nice. And he never once interrupted. He never once was like, well, yeah, I'm the director. Yeah. Or, hey, oh, yeah, like nothing.
This is, you're interning for my organization.
So,
never said it.
For all you, who knows? I could have been saying the worst things ever, but thankfully I wasn't. Then after he had left, a coworker of mine said, oh, you met our director. How was that? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, yeah, he's our
your
director. And I was like, oh, wow. One, you never know who you're talking to.
Yeah, great lesson.
And two, never did he say, oh, I'm this.
Yeah.
Because I think the dynamic of the conversation probably would have totally changed. I probably would have gotten nervous and it would have led to something else.
Yeah, some great lessons there. One for you, like you said, is you don't know who you're going to be talking to, but I love the humility that Chris really displayed there by not throwing some weight around and making that a big deal to announce.
Or not even afterwards. He let you completely think
the whole time.
Yeah. Left. He didn't say, hey, it was great to talk. What you said was great. Also, by the way, I'm the director. Never said, just walked out.
And now, this might be a question for later, and I'll let one of the guys here chime in on a question, but what has come from that too, from your internship, and now you're working on the Hispanic professional group, and Chris is a part of that, right? So, that's
it's like the Godfather, I would say.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got a Godfather. You heard a Godfather there.
That'll start.
Cool. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. And so I said, hey, I want to meet with you. I don't know. I always like meeting with important people. And so I said, yeah, I want to meet with you. I want to get to know you. And I want to, even if you just blow me off or I get nothing out of it, or, if that's the end of the conversation, great. But
so you just said something that's very apparent in your personality and what you've done in our profession is you want to have conversations with important people, but there's also a passion that you have. Obviously, we talk about passion a lot in our industry, and in order to be super successful, a lot of people, you have to have a passion for it because of the grueling hours and nights and weekends.
It's a grind.
It's 100% a grind. And I've always admired the passion you have. And obviously, we've worked together in Mecklenburg County. I've seen it, firsthand. Where does that passion come from? And what has gotten you to the point that you go above and beyond in every task that you accomplish?
Yeah, how do you stoke it? How do you keep that?
The passion?
Yeah.
Well, Hispanic women are just passionate women. I don't know. I feel like, honestly, and this is probably the first time you've ever heard this, when you and Katie Keller came to my school, whatever you guys talked about, I was hooked. You completely sold it. I was like, wait, they get to do summer camps, and I want to do that. That's awesome. So it was one, the draw, and two, when you're in it, the people that you meet. So hanging out with your son, Noah, getting to know him as not just as someone that's super important in Mecklenburg counties. You have to make sure they're, treasured and never hurt, but also getting to know Noah as a person, and getting to know people one step more. Probably should never have done this, but I don't really care. I would give parents my number during summer camp because I didn't have a work number. And if your child is important to me, if they're in my program, and I want you to know that. And so if you have to get to your son or daughter earlier, or if we're away, I need to be able to do that and get your son to the right place so that you can take them to the doctor's appointment.
Sure.
And
I think there's things that we as professionals do that set ourselves apart. And those are little things that you've done. So another example for listeners, Maria is bilingual, speaks Spanish, And
language.
we have had campers in our summer camp that she has gotten word that they speak Spanish and actually has had conversations with the kids and just literally had programs that have been ran in Spanish so that they can feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think it's the connection like that that we as professionals can make with families that make them want to come back and be comfortable with our programs and just build relationships. And if you think about like what we do, big picture wise, it's relationship building, it's impacting families, and those are things that you've done based on going the extra mile.
Yeah, I love perspective when you think about those types of things, especially when you don't carry that perspective.
Sure.
Nile just told a story at his session, which reminded me of what you're saying. It was about a Disney name tag, and under the name tag, it had, speaking English, or I speak Spanish, and it said I also do sign language. And so I'm sure you've experienced this, but can you imagine? I can't, right? So now I'm trying to get that imagery. Can you imagine you're coming here or you're living somewhere and your first language is Spanish, and most everybody else speaks English. And so now your child is trying to have this experience but can't understand what everybody is saying. I can only assume that you came in there at times and talked to people and spoke the language to make them feel that they're, I mean, I'm assuming that's something that you go out of your way to do now. Just
today, speaking of, like, I didn't know where a certain location was, and I literally just walked them there just so I could learn too. And I wanted to make sure they were in the right place. And I did just say, oh yeah, go down the hall. Yeah, I love getting to know participants and like their family, and like been invited to like kids' birthday parties, which is awesome. I have a camper who we started childcare during COVID, and I go to her birthday party, and it's year 4, and I'm still going to her birthday party.
That's awesome. So you're a college student, and you get visited from 2 people from Mecklenburg County. And Mecklenburg County is
Indian trip?
Not at the time. So the college she went to is the closest school to Indian Trail, closest college Indian Trail.
Okay.
So we were going over to Wingate University to talk to students about the Park and Rec major, and that's that connection. So we were in Indian Trail at the time.
So why'd you hop to Mecklenburg? It's just a great opportunity.
Chris Noons, I was in his office, and I said, oh, Jay, I don't know Jay like that, but I know of Jay,
right.
And I know he's in Mecklenburg County. That is my ultimate goal, is to go back to Charlotte if I don't find something in Texas.
Sure.
And I know that that's a well-known organization. It was either that or Indian Trail.
Yeah.
Chris called Jay up and said, hey, Jay, like right on the spot. Like Chris always just makes time for people, I feel like, and called Jay and said, hey, are you guys hiring?
Who never looks out for people, Jay.
Yeah.
Never.
I don't think you guys were hiring, but I worked part-time, rough shifts.
Yeah.
Working at a bar, and then working at like part-time for the county.
Sure.
Just to kind of get my foot in the door, and then I was able to go full-time.
Let me ask you a follow-up. You're here, you're at the conference. I think some young professionals, and actually, I probably shouldn't put that disclaimer on it, because I think there are 15 or 20-year professionals who don't care about the network either. Like they come, well, I just think they come, they go to a conference, and they go back and they work for their agency. They're not they're not social. They go to the hotel room maybe and skip some sessions and stay in the hotel room. I don't think network development at the national level is something everyone's into, but it seems like it was pivotal for you already. What would you say if there was a young professional out there that didn't understand what creating a network could do for them? What would be your pitch to them? Pursue socials, pursue mentorship, and here's why, blank, blank, and blank.
That's I feel like such a personality
Sure.
question. I know some people are introverts, some people are extroverts.
Yeah.
I don't know I think, and I don't know if I'm going to answer your question, but it's just more of what they want to get out of it. Let's look at your 5-year plan.
Right.
Or your 10-year plan, or what you think that might be it. What are some people that you could meet and see what they're doing
Sure.
to get there? Or what are they involved in? I mean, call me nosy, I don't care, but I'm just like, I'm interested in you.
That's an interesting perspective, because when I think of the profile of the person, I think we probably all know someone like this that doesn't care about networking, comes here because their agency pays for it. They also are someone that doesn't have any real desire to leave where they're at. They're not always thinking like I have ambition or I'm trying to go someplace else. They're pretty happy where they're at. So when you said, what's your 5-year goals? If their 5-year goals are to stay at that same spot, maybe developing a network for the purpose of promoting up or out may not be a benefit. Now, having a network where you can reach out and say, what are y'all doing for camp there versus what we're doing for camp here could still be a benefit.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think in some ways, maybe developing your network is something that it just makes you more known at a national level, and that helps your ability to be hired elsewhere. Maybe that has something to do with it. But I think obviously up to you.
It's yeah, that's a really tough question. I don't know. I've always just been interested in what other people are doing and what works for them.
I mean, where do you think you'd be if Katie and Jay weren't at that presentation, or if Nudes didn't know Jay?
I think I would have still been in Park and Rec.
Yeah, just somewhere else.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I was working at Camp Thunderbird, which is a YMCA camp.
Okay.
And I knew that I liked doing that. And I had done that the year before. And I just didn't know that you could make a career out of it.
Yeah. What were you thinking you were going to do in college before it was Parks and Rec?
Physical therapy.
Okay.
Which my mom went, well, I changed my major junior year.
Sure.
And my mom and my dad were like, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's like, they never questioned it, but it was more of like, no, but this is cool. Like, this is what I do.
People don't know what it is a lot of times.
No,
I was a
yeah.
coach, and I went to Parks and Rec, and my dad would tell people he coaches, but just for a city. He'd be like, I don't really understand. He coaches still. He does it for a city, not a school. Because I was running athletic programs and coaching stuff still. But yeah, I get sometimes that we haven't done a great job of telling like 8-year-olds about our major. You know, like
No.
people don't know what our industry is until they're
We haven't done a good job
adults.
even
almost.
telling college students,
Yeah.
let alone 8-year-olds and the youth, but just, I went to my college with a plan to be a physical education teacher, took a gen ed course in Park and Rec and switched my first semester.
Yeah.
Would I have known going into it, I would have done something very different if I would have known that was an option. But, once you learn all the options for our industry, it's totally different and it's eye-opening because so many of us that are in the industry now were involved in these programs or activities when we were little, but I don't think about that when I'm going through a summer camp or I'm going through swim lessons when I'm 7 years old of like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
You just want to pursue it.
Even though teachers are something is
Yeah.
an option, and coaches is something is an option when you're young, you don't know the people that run the camp that you go to, or the people that run the after school program,
Yeah.
which is also an option, which is very interesting.
I asked a child one time, I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I really like your job. I want to be a camp counselor. I'm like, oh, cool.
Look at you. That's awesome.
We'll recruit you now.
Let me ask one more thing. You were in Mecklenburg, right?
Yep.
You found your way there through your network, and then you left Mecklenburg, which is it's an esteemed department despite hiring Jay, and it's got gold medal awards and everything else. And you went to a smaller agency. What was that transition like for you?
And can I just ask a question before that? So you're saying you didn't leave because of Jay?
Yeah, that's what we all think.
That's the rumor.
Well-
For sure.
No, and it was a really tough decision, but I think that I felt cushioned and comfortable for a little bit. And part of me felt like I needed to leave to move up, whether in a different organization or with the county. I mean, who knows where I'll be at, but I knew that once I started feeling comfortable in my position, I needed to get like uncomfortable.
Sure.
And sometimes it's tough being a young professional and other people only seeing you as that and not seeing you as a manager, which I probably wasn't ready to be a manager.
Sure.
But I wanted to get there. That
career pyramid's real, right? Like there's 18 camp counselors and 3 camp supervisors. There's 3 camp supervisors, 1 camp director on site. There's 3 campsites, 3 camp directors report on 1 camp overall manager or whatever, right? So like that career pyramid, I'm sure it's the same in Huntersville as it is in Mecklenburg and Pflugerville everywhere. If there's 2 or 3 of a position and it's supervised by 1 person, and it maybe 2 or 3 folks are interested in that, first of all, that person's got to leave. The top of that pyramid is going to leave. And then you would almost have to battle each other to see who promotes up, right? And so promote up or promote out is something we hear about a lot, but you had an opportunity to promote out, and
it was tough.
Because you left, I mean, to leave, you only knew the Woodlands
In
Mecklenburg County. And I'm not trying to tarnish anything with Huntsville, but it's definitely not, an agency of that size or caliber. Right?
Yeah. But I always knew in my plan, I didn't just want to work for one.
Sure.
I wanted to work for multiple.
Yeah.
And figure out how they worked from different parts and doing different things.
And we talked about with a previous guest, I have always felt like if you're a one-person agency, you're at one agency your whole career, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. And I think kudos to you and for you to be able to serve an agency for that long. But there are muscles that don't get used. That when you leave Mecklenburg and you go to Huntsville and you have to do it. Huntersville. Sorry.
I have a Huntsville in Texas. Let it slide the first time, but now that it's been 4 times.
I have a Huntsville in Texas.
I
You go to
introduced it right?
You said it correctly. When you go to
Shane's
Huntersville, you have to flex muscles you didn't have to flex before. You have to work muscles you didn't have to work
Yes.
before.
Well, and then to add to that, if you worked for a smaller agency, you wear a lot of hats. You're not going to be just doing one type of programming. So you're going to be wearing all these different hats in Huntersville just because that's the norm of a smaller group that has to all hands on deck for different activities.
Yeah. And my new favorite thing to do at an event is making sure the trash is picked up and the bathrooms are stocked and working. And it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Right.
But it's more of like, if someone's coming to your house, you want to make sure it's presentable.
Sure.
And to me, everybody has their things that they want to make sure, whether it's great, whether it's parking or signage. Mine's like trash and like bathrooms.
So everyone's got.
So
And I don't mind getting in there and picking up the trash.
I've never heard the analogy that you just said. Like you're home, you want to be presentable, and you're working special events, and a special event can be quote unquote your home.
You're inviting people
Yeah.
to your
And
home,
you
right?
want it to be presentable. It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Because
Lindsay's
obviously,
called
like the
my
trash and the bar and bathrooms are the things that people will remember. If I have to go into the bathroom and it's empty and
poop everywhere.
it's not clean, I'll remember that. And just like if I went to your house and your house was like that, I'm gonna remember that.
My
I'm not gonna
supervisor,
go back to your house.
Lindsay Small, shout out to Lindsay. She told me that when I first started, and that's all she said. And for the longest time, I was like, "This isn't a house. What do you mean?" And it kind of took me like a couple events to realize, like, yeah, setting an alarm on your phone to make sure that the trash is picked up, and making sure that it's not overflowing, and making sure that the toilets are working and not, and there's toilet paper. Like that to me is my bread and butter in an event.
I'm going to ask a question that leads into what you're currently doing. But before that, just to kind of add on that, and we're still working on our first sponsor. So, Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean is now going to be a possibility. So I just said, I love that we're here at conference, everybody, because we're talking about things that I think are relevant to what we just talked about. So I was just at Eli's session, given some sessions on the experience that people have at your events and at your programs and at your facilities. And one thing that we both have done, and what he does so well, is talk about in Disney how at the traditions program you go in there and they ask you if you're part of the custodial staff, and they catch everybody off guard. There's a whole TikTok. He doesn't use it, but I've used it before in a session, and I recommend anybody look it up. It's asking if you're part of the custodial staff, and nobody raises their hand because they might be cast members at a ride. They might be cast members in a shop or whatever it is, some kind of experience. They ask again, are you a custodial? Raise your hand. Nobody raises their hand. And then they ask again, or actually make the statement, everybody here should be raising their hand because you're all in custodial. Because Walt Disney himself would walk the parks and pick up trash because it's his home. His name is on that. And the example you set by doing that for your team is, that tells a story in itself. So let's go into that. Your passion is obvious. We've talked a little bit about it. We've kind of led into that. You told me an amazing story last year about your upbringing, which I love. I love hearing about people's upbringing and your parents. And you mentioned that earlier, right? You mentioned that a little earlier. Not only do you have that passion for the profession, but you have it for your roots. And so we talked about the influence and the importance on Latin culture and your role here now with getting the Hispanic professionals group up and running. And recently, you have run and led Huntersville first Latino night with all Latino vendors, correct? So
Yes.
This is something, tell us about that event because that's fascinating and I'm assuming it was a major
Yes. So, not to downplay it, but it was the second one. My previous supervisor did it, but that was my bad. You wanna hear about that event?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Share about it.
It was such a party. I wanted to make sure that, one, we had enough food for people, but I wanted it to just be Latin owned or I think we had a Caribbean food truck. So I wanted other people to also be represented, but I wanted to start with vendors So we had, it was food vendors and the people that were performing at Latino night, they were Hispanic too. So I just kind of, and I worked with someone else on it. So it wasn't just me, but I said, this is the vision. This is what I would love. And I want to empower and support them. And I just kind of want to, during the event, just kind of make sure my end of the stuff is running, but I want them to feel empowered and run their food trucks and they're business owners, so they know how to do it. Honestly, just wanted them to feel supported. And one of the vendors were a Venezuelan food truck, and they had never done an event with us before. And they were in Charlotte and had only done Charlotte events.
Yeah.
And I told them when they got there, I said, hey, this isn't really Charlotte events. You might not get that many people, but we're really happy you're here. And they were like, oh, we're just happy to be included. It doesn't matter if we have a bad day or not, or a bad night with our what we're selling. We're just happy to be included, and you let me know when to come back. So that was a connection I had made with them.
You talked about passion being related, particularly to being Hispanic female, and I can almost even think culture leads a lot of what you're doing. I believe your will to serve wherever probably could be related back to some of what you grew up in with your culture, your passion for sure. How open and honest you are. Of the big rocks or the things that you've learned from your culture, are you trying to bleed that over? Are you trying to be? We talk about being authentically ourselves in our workspace. I think that more than just your passion probably comes from just your upbringing and your culture. Do you lean into that a lot? Do you find that in this day and age you have the support or the freedom to be authentically you? And do you lean into other things that you learned about from your culture or what you from your upbringing and your family?
Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
That was part of so that question that changed that was going to be the part 2 of that question. You told me about your parents and how much that impacted you. So you can kind of just weave that in.
So honestly, when I was little, my dad and my mom, whenever someone came to the house, you asked them what they wanted to eat or drink or where they wanted to sit. Like you were the
service.
I mean, honestly, like from a small age, it was, what can I help you with? Or how can I get you there?
Right.
Or you're coming into my house, like, what could I do for you? And I think that just led into just even being an adult or in the service that I'm in, like, how can I help you and what do you need from me and how can I get you there?
I'm not trying to paint a culture with a broad brush for sure. Hannah and I get super excited when we get invited to very Latino or Hispanic. First of all, you're just instantly welcomed. It seems like when you go, they're big huggers. They kiss on both sides of your face. What do you want? What do you need? Have a seat. Sit in our best spot. This is our best bite to eat. They want to serve you. They want to celebrate you. They want to celebrate with you.
Biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah,
honestly.
we're always excited.
I would be somebody's biggest cheerleader, like no other.
And I think that, once again, I'm sure there are some families that aren't like that, but anytime that we get invited to Hispanic or Latino type celebrations, you feel it. There's just this energy there. And I just wonder how much of that you get to dip into. Like,
a lot.
Pretty second nature.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's like literally part of me. Yeah. At this point.
That's great.
Even like volunteering, that to me was super important this year.
Do you feel like you have to hold any of that back?
No. That's where I like thrive in.
Right. You get to just
oh my gosh, that's I think I want to volunteer every year if that's the case. But I don't know, I just like helping people, and from a small age, that was what you did. Like you helped people, and you didn't bring just one person a cupcake, you brought everybody a cupcake.
Right.
And everybody was welcome at the house, and if someone needs a bed, you give them your bed.
Right.
And you sleep on the couch. Like that's just kind of second nature to me.
Shane would never give me his bed if I needed it.
No, but I'd sleep with him.
He didn't invite you in.
You can sleep on the floor.
Okay, touche.
Find your own blanket.
Also, not to take over, but I told my mom how important Jay was in my life as a mentor, professional, but also like personally too. And my mom got to meet you, and I was like, she was like, oh, is that blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, Mom, remember I told you about him? She was like, oh, yeah, I remember. So now it's through like meeting you, it's kind of just been
Did you remember
molding.
that?
And now my mom loves
Like
you.
2 weeks, like
Oh, wow.
literally just recently.
That's amazing.
And the funny thing about that is I can actually say this.
Fall from the tree.
Well, I can say the same thing about her and my family. So I mentioned on a previous podcast about birthdays. We were talking, you asked a question about birthdays, and I turned 40 last year. My wife threw me a 40th, and Maria came. And then we had some people over at my house after, and Maria came to my house after, and my parents were in town. And my mom has known Maria now for a little bit because she's come to Eastway when Noah had a basketball game and Maria was there. And so she constantly will ask me, how's Maria doing? Yeah. And, you can see the impact that like she obviously has on our profession and on kids, but like when she meets someone too, even unrelated to park and recreation, Maria has an impact that she can have on people that people ask about her on a regular basis.
Sure. Our guests cannot see Maria right now, but her reaction, she just melted with that to hear that. So
It's huge.
and being in person and having these conversations, that's pretty special too.
Prior to you coming in today, we always have a little minute or two little conversation that we have. One of the things that Tom asked us was, we're at conference. Obviously, we've only been here for maybe 2 days at max. What's something that you're looking forward to in the next 48 hours while we're still here at conference? What's the one thing that you're really, really going to dive into and just can't wait to accomplish?
We present, the Hispanic Professional Park and Rec Group presents tomorrow. And we kind of had a little preview of that less than an hour ago. And there wasn't any, it was a roundtable room and people were still standing in the room. And for that, like seeing that, I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome.
And this is your presentation, or this is the meeting?
This is just,
The meeting happened, and then you're
so
doing
the
the
meeting
presentation?
happened, so the preview happened.
Okay.
And we are presenting as a group tomorrow.
But it's really, it's you and Eric, right?
And Edwin
Okay, Evan. Okay.
and Juan.
Oh, wow.
And then if our two other board members can make it, they'll try to make it there. So it's like now how to describe it? Like ordering a pizza, right? You get all these different feedback of people, what they want to order. You're making it, so you're in the process of doing it.
Sure.
And now all the pizza slices are kind of together. So now it's just kind of meeting.
No, I get where you're
But
going.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
now with that session that we just had, meeting different people, hearing what they do for work,
Sure.
hearing how we can help them, hearing what sessions they want to hear, all that now I feel like is getting me excited for tomorrow. And I don't feel like we have enough time to present and talk about it because we can talk for a while.
That's like these shows.
Yeah. Tom and I were at the very beginning of the Young Fresh Network, and Jay came in really soon thereafter. But that first conference, after you've kind of gotten some footing under your, because at first you're just trying to get your balance, and you become a new network, you become a new group, and you're just trying to figure out what that is. What you find out is it is everything to everyone. It's how they consume it, right? So it's it goes back to the thing that Jay hates when I say, but it's the spaghetti that you're not one spaghetti sauce, you're every spaghetti sauce to every different flavor. Like one group likes extra chunky, but one group likes diced, and one group likes it super runny, and one group likes it super thick. And what your network becomes is all of that to everyone, because someone else comes in. Like we may have thought that YPN was what we had thought it was, and then an academic comes in, and Dr. Michael Bradley, who's here at conference, and hopefully I'll get to see him, was like, well, I need to be able to be journaled. I need to be peer reviewed. Okay, let's create. And we literally created a young professional journal that was for academics, and they had an academic committee, and people submitted sessions, and it was reviewed by academics, and it actually was posted in a journal that we published for a while. The Young Fresh Network was publishing at our own cost a journal, and someone else wanted to write, but not at that journal level. They wanted to write in the magazine, and we reached out to the NRPA and got the Future Leaders column. And what you start to, what's cool is you come out and you say, this is what I think this industry needs, and very quickly you find out it's not enough.
Yeah.
It may be a portion of that, but there's so many other needs. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, let's also try to make those things happen. And it's pretty cool to see what that turns into.
And one of the topics were like, what can we help you with?
Yeah.
Again, like leading back to like, can I,
Sure.
I'm like serving you. That was what we were like, what do you guys want to see? Maintenance side stuff, aquatic side stuff. You tell us and we'll help you.
That was interesting too, because I had asked you, we have an ethnic minority society, and now we have a Hispanic population society, and I'd said, were they not serving each other very well? And we were just talking with you at the social, and you brought up an excellent point, and once again, it's really tough to serve everything that everybody needs. And so when you find out that there are maintenance professionals in our industry that English is their second language, and they may speak some English when a director or a department meeting happens, but when they're on site, when they're with their other crews, when they're at home, when they're with their family, when they're off day, they're probably Spanish first. So they're speaking Spanish 70% of the time, maybe 30% of the time English. They're learning what they need to say, to convey a need to the department or the agency they work for, but it's not their daily dialect, right? But then we, as a industry, want to get them certified, and so we say you got to take this test, and it's all in English. And so I would have never, being a privileged white guy, I would have never thought anything about it until talking to you. It's like, hey, but I know it. I've got a guy on my committee that I give him in my department all the time. That every time I talk to him, he starts speaking Spanish. Man, I go, one, I know you know what I'm talking about. Don't you screw around with me today, buddy. And he smiles and we'll talk, and it's not his first language. It's not something other than talking to me and a couple people in the department. He probably speaks Spanish 100% of the time with his family, with his friends, wherever place that he's going to, whether it's in entertainment or whatever. And we're in Texas, so maybe that's a little different here. Maybe there's more opportunities for that here. But I thought, man, if Juan wanted to do a certification, it would be really tough. Not for him to do the technical part. Juan's one of our most technically savvy guys in our department. But if he had to convince someone through an English language that he could do that would be pretty difficult, And so it's really cool to see that there was a need, you're filling it, and you're not limiting it to what you thought the need was. You're like, okay, this is what we thought the need was. Where is the actual need? Oh, wow, it's bigger than we thought. Let's go attack those things now.
Yeah. And a lot of that members in that group are immigrants.
Yeah.
I was born in Colombia, South America.
Look at that.
And just have an opportunity.
Puerto Rico, I believe.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and he's always posting about, what they're doing down there.
So this is great. I got one more question for you, if that's all right with everybody.
Okay, I need more questions from you.
Okay, let Tom go and then I'll finish it.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, all right, that's perfect. So my question for you is not to put you on the spot at all, but this is the first time that we've done this episode in person, or this show.
What an honor.
Which is super cool, right? And we're honored to have you. One of the questions that was asked by Shane, can't take credit, but he asked it, was we would have this conversation potentially at this conference anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now it would be tougher because there would be 17 people around coming in and say, Maria, I need to ask you this, or Tom about this. Shane,
but we literally talked about things we already talked about.
Yeah.
I brought them back up.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're at this conference and there's if you could pick, not counting any of us, and I'm sure you wouldn't pick us anybody, if you can have the same setup right here, a quiet conversation, dinner, whatever it is, four people. It's the 4-person dinner. We call that question. Can you? We don't need to put you in the spot because there's a million people, I'm sure. But can you pick 3 out that you would like to?
Here at conference?
Yeah. Let's go with that. Here at conference.
Nile Bot.
Okay.
Makes some sense.
No,
I get it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
I get it, I guess.
Nile Hashim Taylor.
The Parks and Rec director now.
Okay.
Young professional still too, always.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man.
And you don't have to have a relationship established with.
Yeah.
Someone that you don't
know.
Tiffany Lapierre.
Oh yeah, new board director.
Yep.
So those are your 3. What the first question would you ask in that group to get the conversation? Is that one where you wouldn't talk a lot and you just sit back and listen?
Oh man, I think I would ask them what's your favorite part about your current role? It's very generic, but you can kind of peel layers.
Sure, from there.
Question like that too, of a group like that, you get answers about, you kind of read between the lines of what drives them.
Sure.
And I would love to know what drives most of the individuals that we have the opportunity to work with.
Hashim just got a new role within this year, and he was telling me last night, he was like, yeah, I'm a director. And that to me, I'm like, whoa, like we need to celebrate that. Because I don't think when he got the 30 under 30, he was that. And to see that, like super cool. So now I'm like, yeah, how did you get there? Like what roles did you know, what did you learn? Who did you talk to? Interview tips. You can never learn enough interview tips. Something I learned from you. You can always exercise interview. Like
That we could do a whole session on just talking about interviews and like just perspectives of different views of that. Because I know we've talked about that, you and I, Shane, about in over years and years of conversations about resumes and interviews, and that's a great.
And people would be surprised we actually agree for the most part on those things.
It might be a boring podcast because we would agree on everything at that time.
Okay, so I want Jay to end it because y'all have a great relationship. You mentioned the 30 under 30, and it's not something we've talked about a lot in the podcast. Our great friend, Michael Biedenstein, is the driving force behind that. What did that mean to your career? What does that mean to you when you see other people get it? And, you know, how impactful was that for maybe announcing you on the national scene? Were you able to use that, I don't know, bump or whatever the cool word is of the day, but to be recognized in that way? Is it bump?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I actually don't love announcing that much, and I need to more.
Should.
But
Very proud.
I don't know. I feel like
Your agency had to be impressed. Your family had to be impressed. Your supervisors had to be pumped.
yeah,
Did that help in all those relationships?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think when you're put on a magazine,
Yeah.
you're like, whoa, like I'm big time. But to me, I never felt that way.
You'll have to tell Jay what that feels like. He's never had that.
I never felt like I was like, oh, I need to be on a magazine somewhere. Like I never felt that because I was just so
Did you get
happy.
of those magazines, by the way?
Oh, I got everybody's, and my mom My mom has at least 10.
Yeah.
So the funny thing about that is she was working for Mecklenburg at the time, and you know we have an agency membership, so there's a lot of magazines that come
Pick 'em up
to
every
our
day.
administrative office, and I see them all in the mailbox, and I'm sure if she would have came, she would have been active.
Oh yeah, like are you using this? Oh no.
Did you autograph it?
No.
No.
I don't know. Like I just felt like I was like, I'm really good at this job right now and I love it. And like, I want to be the best of that role and then go from there.
Is it on your
And
resume?
in that, yes.
Good.
It should be.
Yeah.
100% it should
And
be.
in
I wanna
that,
make sure, yeah, absolutely.
people saw what job the great of a job I was doing, but I was never like, look at me, this is
No.
what I'm doing. It was more of like, oh wow, like someone recognized me.
We'll
like,
never be 30 under 30, and that wasn't a thing for us. But I look at it every single year.
We want to be 40 under 40.
We won't be 50 under 50. Here we go.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Northeast Rochester city limit. Yeah, it was really no. But
It was not It was not limited to rec though. So
oh, that's true. That's right. But and I didn't mean bump in a selfish way, but it is a way for those 30 professionals. I think of Nathan Ford, and I learned about him and his story, and yeah, there was a lot of different people that they pop off that. It may be a name you might have heard in passing. You're like, oh, that's that person. Wow, they're 30 or 30. It really pops. I'll never experience that, but I want. First of all, I was hoping you were maximizing it, and hopefully that your agency celebrated it, and hopefully that that was something that was really cool. But even now, if you see it this year, or they talked about it at the breakfast this morning, does it bring back any memories? Or you're a big advocate of the program now? You're trying to make sure the best.
Yeah, I'm not the best writer, but I feel like I would nominate somebody that I knew and I was kind of close with, and I followed their career.
It's
To
really
just be a cheerleader for them. Yeah.
And we're announcing it on the podcast, not that it's official, but on our program committee, they even talked about maybe trying to find someone from that group every year to be involved in some way with the program committee.
Sure.
They have
it's great.
a year on the thing, or maybe they're used for a young professional panel or something. But even our program committee doesn't have a lot of young professionals on it right now. But it was one of those things that even we from not the outside, but the older park and rec professionals see that that's a really cool thing. And I think in a lot of ways we enjoy seeing that magazine.
Yeah, we see value in the viewpoints and the perspectives of the young professionals in so many different ways, and that magazine can bring that to light across the country.
Yeah.
I think we all have young professionals in our agencies that we've worked with that have an impact locally, but then to see this nationally and then see these names rise is awesome.
That's a big accomplishment for Michael and
Oh.
the group,
Yeah.
because what we used to do, and I hate to use that phrase, but you talked about the journal, right?
Yeah.
And Katie still does it now with what she does an amazing. She's taken what we used to do and
Yeah.
just exploded it. The mini YPN website
Yeah.
for this conference
Yeah.
it's phenomenal, right? And what ends up happening on that is we used to do a YPZ conference or in the journal, a spotlight of a YP.
Yeah.
And NRPA every once in a while in the future leaders, or they might have a member spotlight they used to have where they would spotlight a young professional, but not every time.
Mhm.
And then of course the Robert Crawford Award, one winner every year. So to have this where there's 30 people under 30, I mean it's right there in your face. It's right in that magazine for everybody to
And
see.
to correlate the YPN with, what you're doing potentially the Hispanic group. What the success we had at the YPN, we weren't 100-0. Like we had a lot of failure. Ryan Haggis talks about fail rate, and you don't see all the things we failed at. In fact, we could spend a podcast talking about the things we tried to initiate and they didn't work out. But when you're 37 and 16, when you're winning more than you lose overall, like these types of things happen like this. So I would definitely encourage you in your leadership role with your new network to try to throw as many things up against the wall as possible and see what sticks and what doesn't. Not to focus on only 2 or 3 victories, but to really try to make an impact in that way.
I had a really good conversation with Katie last night. Stuff that she was going through. I mean, to put together, like to see what you guys did, and then her do that, and have speakers every month, and have this great group of people that is volunteering along with your normal job. She designed the logo like on Canva or whatever she used. And I was like, I would have just never thought that. Like the little things that you don't think about, like that young professionals are doing. And it's really cool to see.
Super impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that we're having.
Well, I think, we've talked about a lot of your accomplishments. We've talked about 30 under 30 Hispanic organization. Obviously you're volunteering. You are doing a session here. Like there's not a lot of young professionals that can list all these different things that you're doing. But what's next? Are there a committee that you're targeting? Is there a position, not necessarily a position for an agency, but different roles with being a YPN chair?
If you could take a job in Huntsville, so I don't have to edit.
Huntsville.
There's things that we have talked about that you've already accomplished that at a very young age is very absolutely. Kudos to you. Like none of us, I don't think we're presenting at a national conference before we were 30. And that's a huge accomplishment, and that obviously is going to lead to confidence in other things.
Mm-hmm.
So there are other things that you're looking at now to join and get more involved in different committees or roles that you can talk about.
I would really love this year to build our North Carolina Young Professional Network.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly felt like that was a lot easier when I was with the county because there was already such a pool of people and such a pool of eager people versus now being in a much smaller department. Like I'll get 3 no's from the 5 people we have, and that's majority.
That's the great thing about a big department is they hire a lot of young professionals.
Yeah. And so, but just building that.
Always hiring.
Yeah.
But like I know some people that I'm still friends with from the county that'll text me about stuff, and I'll text them, hey, we've got a meeting this month, or so building that is one of my goals, and then get my CPRP. Not that you asked, but that was one of them. And then just be more involved in NRPA.
I 100% guarantee you can take the test today.
Oh yeah,
with your knowledge.
absolutely.
I think
Don't stress about it.
Don't
stress about it. Well, I guess that'll wrap it up. This is I think we could keep going, but we're kind of on a clock.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, this conference is jam packed with everything. Maria, thank you so much for being our first ever in-person guest.
What an honor.
Jay, Shane, great as always. And we will see you on Thursday. So 2 days from now for our second ever in-person. And of course, Maria was the first, so a lot to live up to.
That's
for
right.
The second guest. It's Jay's guest.
Yep.
Who we may or may not find out between now and then. We'll see.
Yep. We have another guest coming back, and no hints.
No hints
today.
So 2 days from now, we'll see everybody back here live. And again, Maria, thank you.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you.
Incredible pool. What a great draw. She's got so much passion, so much energy. You when you see, I don't know about y'all, when I see someone like that, you're like, man, I hope that continues throughout your whole career.
And I think the thing is like I was saying at the end, it's like she already has a laundry list of accomplishments, and she's not even 30, and she's not stopping or slowing down anytime soon. You know, the passion's there, the love is there. She sees the impact. She understands the big picture of what we do. It's only going to get stronger.
Yeah. And I was very excited about the guest. I mean, for obvious reasons, and I think that that's going to show through to our listeners. There was almost a couple times where I slipped up.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Jay and I were talking before this, and I said, maybe
No.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
yes, you had, but this was really cool to be in person. I was a little nervous about that, especially, to be honest, it's not the talking part of it, right? But I'm looking at your face, mainly Shane. It's not yours, Jay, so much. But I sometimes just look at that face, and I don't even know if I can keep a straight face. Like
I can't.
this stuff it's way different in person, and I like to keep track of things. And with this show, Jay, you are 2-0 on guests who have really said amazing things about you. Just so you know, between Katie and so, kudos to you, a testament to you.
Start bringing on people that like.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't know that was going to happen. There was no intention, and also that was a first where someone was so interested in Jay asking a question that Maria asked for the last question to come from Jay,
And I'm not even a guest.
the host.
The host, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're a host.
Well, the other thing that I thought you were going to say was we haven't done any drop on football. So I have to just say it, even though the Bills lost this week. Hopefully they can turn around this weekend.
Lost from London.
It was ugly, but yeah.
All right. Well,
I think she is a perfect example of the evolution of our industry and how it's getting better as we continue to highlight younger people, as we continue to highlight the diversity that this membership has. She is fucking killing it out there as a young professional. I think it's great.
we had a conversation earlier, Jay and I and Chris Noons, and maybe this was yesterday too, with some people. We need more of that, right? We need more Marias.
Well, if you could follow it up and sell it, every agency in the world would
Oh yeah. So I mean, it's something that, and Diana Weber, well, I call her Diana Weber.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But Diana was once with us. Now she's in Mecklenburg, and again, if you can bottle that up with those individuals it's hard to come by. Yeah, just a joy, just a pleasure to hear her talk.
Huntersville.
That is correct.
Huntersville.
All right, guys. We're trying to get some barbecue dinner. Is that correct?
Got kicked out of this.
And we almost got kicked out. The lights are off.
Almost got kicked out mid presentation.
So I think we should go, and then we'll be back here again. I already told everybody, but
Good
we'll
job.
be back here in a couple of days. Thank
What a
you.
great guest.
I appreciate it. And yeah, again, we'll see everybody next time.
Awesome.